Apologies are good. I'm waiting for some apologies on Twitter right now, and I haven't gotten them. So
By
I
the way,
was just checking again.
By the way, right in the last about what do you want to call it? In the last couple of hours, Adam Hill has been an expert on the locker room that the Chiefs will be using. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's a wild story that's going on. First of all, there's so many. Every day at the Super Bowl is a different experience, and the whole news cycle changes every hour. Big talk this morning that the 49ers are using the UNLV practice field, and they don't like it. It's too soft. The grass is too soft. They don't want to be there. So that's always fun. And now the locker room controversy has begun because it was posted the other day that the Chiefs will be using the Raiders locker room. And Raiders fans lost it. That's an arch rival. They're using the locker room. That's not fair. And somebody posted some signage of the Raiders locker room with Chiefs logos painted over. Not painted, it was wrapped over it. And then Jermaine Illuminor from the Raiders chimed in and said, player, he's a starting right tackle for the Raiders. He said, I go in that locker room all the time. That's not our locker room. That's the UNLV locker room. You guys are all wrong. And so everybody's just kind of believed that. Now, here's the problem. I love Jermaine Illuminor. He's great. But there is a player's entrance and a non-player's entrance. There's two entrances. So when he said that's not where we go in, that's true, but it is your locker room.
Yeah.
And so fans have just caught on and said the media's lying, fake news, all this other stuff. And there's been some nasty, nasty things said on Twitter about me and some other people. This morning I went on and did a couple spots on Raider Nation Radio, things like that, and told people, like, look, he's not wrong. That's not where it goes in. We were trying to get to the bottom of it. And then another media person went and did the same thing. Two media people, actually, an hour ago, did the same thing. They took a picture of the player's entrance and said there's no Chief signage. That's the wrong entrance. So now they had that. Now there is an event going on inside the Raiders locker room. It is covered in Chiefs signage and logos, and all of their stuff is in there. So now we know for sure it is the Chiefs in the Raiders locker room. But all of those people that have said nasty things the last 2 days, nothing. I just responded to one. I said, "We good now?" And they haven't responded to that either.
You're such a troll on Twitter. It's so funny.
What else is there to do on Twitter? That's what Twitter. It's not. No, it's not. It's Twitter.
Okay, I don't care.
I don't know. Like, what else is there to do? What are you going to just state something that happened? I love people that are like, Raiders took out a first down. Yeah, we all know.
The play-by-play guy.
Yeah, why? Everybody that cares is watching it. It's silly, but yes, trolling is a way to do it. And I don't think it's trolling. It's just if they want to attack you and say things, okay, well, I was right. Are you going to say that now? No, of course they're not.
Cool. Jorge, real quick, said, "Well, Mr. Hill, just know that Charger fans love you. We appreciate you sharing the mic with the Compas." So
there you go.
There you go.
People like you, Adam.
I am also look. I'm a big Michigan fan, so we'll definitely be following Coach Harbaugh's journey. Down with the Chargers.
Talk about that a little bit. What did you make of that?
Of him going to the Chargers?
Yeah.
Look, I know a lot of Michigan fans were upset. Like, to me, he did everything that anybody could have asked him. That's a Michigan fan. Now, I'm from Ann Arbor. I went to UNLV here, so people give me a hard time for that. But I'm from Ann Arbor. I'm a Michigan fan my whole life. Everything that we could have asked for from a coach, he did. So, like, what are we going to drag him at, make him stay there the rest of his career? He accomplished it. And the college landscape is changing. We understand that. He wanted to go back. He has one thing to accomplish still left in his career. He wants to do that, and he went and did it. I'm sure the Raiders, if Jim Harbaugh does work out, are going to regret not maybe pursuing him. But again, the results speak for themselves. So if the Raiders are successful, they're not going to care they don't have Harbaugh. But yeah, for me as a Michigan fan, thanks, Coach. Good luck.
Well, going from there, Adam, did the Raiders settle on Antonio Pierce because of the Raider way? They won a few games. They beat the Chiefs, and you see Mike Vrabel out there. You see maybe Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, or Jim Harbaugh. This was a very loaded coaching carousel, and the Raiders said, "Nah, we're good. We like what AP has done." For you, did you think that was a wrong approach? Maybe at least even try and make a full effort, and you swing at the big guys. You always have AP in the back pocket. What did you think about that?
Did you see the report today that Mike Vrabel is just too big?
Or too scary, apparently.
Too scary?
Yeah,
He's like big and intimidating. That's wild. Look, they were going to always consider AP because he did have some success at the end of the year. There's no question. The players loved him so much. It was going to be hard to tell the players, like, basically they said, go out and perform. If you go out and perform and play well for him, then he's going to have a chance at the job. And they did that. So they were going to have to consider him. It was always going to be the case. For me, I would have talked to everyone and They did not talk to Jim Harbaugh, and which was I thought was fairly interesting. But is it the right hire? Again, we'll find out. Time will tell. If they're successful, that he is. But he is a first-time head coach in a division that now has Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, and Sean Payton. Like, that's tough. That's tough. And now, obviously, this very public incident involving, hiring an offensive coordinator, then him backing out of the job and everything that went on there. It's a bad look, regardless of how it works out. Whether it works out or not, for right now, you look bad and you look like you don't kind of know what you're doing. Now, they can fix it. If Luke Getsy works out and he's good and they have a good offense, everybody will forget how this looked. But for right now, it's not a great start. But again, this is the risk reward, I guess, of hiring a first-time coach. He's never gone through a process of hiring coordinators and other assistants and things like that. This is a learning experience for him. And he said often throughout the year, he said, look, my first day on the job is going to be my worst day, and I'll try to get better every day. And he made some really bad mistakes in game management the first couple of games, got a little bit better later in the time. So I think to his credit, there are things that he knows he doesn't know and that he has to get better at. And if he does that, then it'll work out.
What do you make of the Tom Telesco, Champ Kelly, and Antonio Pierce marriage?
Yeah, I feel like the biggest thing for the Raiders really, and I know that there's a lot of talk about, connections and agents and who's pulling the strings and all that, but that's everywhere. So I thought it was interesting that people were like, oh, the Raiders are just getting pulled around by, all these other agents and all these outside forces. Yeah, what team isn't? That's what happens in the NFL. That's the politics of the NFL. And it's kind of silly to say it's only the Raiders that happens to, but I think that Mark Davis was very hesitant about, and I know Champ and Antonio had the job on an interim basis for this year, but a first-time coach and a first-time GM, both on the job at the same time, both trying to figure it out, throwing them both into the deep end and saying, just go. I think that gave him a lot of pause. And so it makes sense to me that once Antonio Pierce had the job, as much as I thought Champ Kelly did an admirable job and I think deserves a shot as a GM, I just don't think that was going to work out in terms of being inexperienced at both positions. I think they wanted to have a more experienced guy at the top who's done this before, who's been around, and I think that's why they put them together.
Adam, kind of random, but we know Tom Telesco from the Chargers days, and
I'm all about random.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so here we go. He is really big on Jimmy John's. So
really,
what do you feel about the sandwich, and what can you do to say, you know what, you're in Vegas now, or Henderson to be exact, here's something better for you for sandwiches?
Well, first of all, I will say the Jimmy John's has some good
okay, all right.
There are some great spots. Actually, I would tell them to switch to Greek food, because there's a Greek spot right by the facility, and us being there every day, we go there probably 4 or 5 times a week. And I know you guys are going to talk to Paul Gutierrez on the beat. It's kind of a running thing. We have a kind of a lunch group, a couple of us, and Paul's part of it. And everybody just knows, don't even ask my suggestion. It's always the Greek place every day. And sometimes we go 4 or 5 times in the week. So I would say for Tom, go to the Greek joint. It's really cool right by you. There's so many great restaurants in Vegas, though, in general. If you're not at the facility, if you have further to go, there's some better spots. But you have the good intel on him. I actually am starting to gather some as well, because oddly enough, just how this works out, my mom and everybody from my mom's family is from a little small village, essentially, in Western New York.
Yeah.
And that's where Tom Telesco is from as well.
Oh, wow.
So I have a lot of mutual connections, a lot of people, like, an uncle that went to high school at the same time. So I think my mom and him went to the same elementary school, obviously at different times, but so we have that. So we'll have that and Jimmy Johnson talk about it, I guess.
Adam, real quick, somebody's asking what happened with Kliff to the Raiders. If you can share it.
Yeah. I'm and I'll full disclosure, I'll say, and I've said this a couple times today already, that obviously there are things that we think we know that we're trying to confirm. So a little hesitant in answering this question in terms of exactly what I think happened. But I will say that usually when a deal is close and it's reported, there's little issues that still have to get worked out, that aren't fully done. And that is almost every time you see a report, hey, this guy is going to be the coach of this team, or this guy's going to take this job, it's almost never done yet. It's always a work in progress. And in this case, those little issues that are almost always ironed out weren't. And the other part of this is, until a deal is signed, there's other teams that are pulling strings and saying, hey, you haven't signed yet? What about this? Oh, what do you think about this? Now, I don't believe it has to do – a lot of people have said he went somewhere else because he wanted a better chance at drafting a quarterback right away, especially potentially getting Caleb Williams. I don't believe it was quarterback related. I think there were some other things at work here that that led to this happening. And one of the reports out there was that he wanted a 3-year deal, and that's not something the Raiders usually do with assistant coaches. And I think that was a little part of it, but I do think there were some particular things about who was going to be around in the organization that there was maybe some disagreements on.
Who had a bigger backpedal? Was it Josh McDaniels to the Colts, or was it Kliff Kingsbury to the Raiders?
I think it was McDaniels. I mean, he was on his way to the press conference.
There was a handshake.
And, you know, we that story has come out, hasn't been fully confirmed by either side, but what happened there, and I don't necessarily blame Josh McDaniels in that case. Like, it's a strange story that I'm sure a lot of people have heard, and we don't have to get into it necessarily, but if what was reported happened between Josh McDaniels and the Colts actually happened, I think that there's probably good reason to have backed out of that deal.
His wife probably made chimichangas for dinner or something. So he had to run to the bathroom.
Nobody had to be gross about it. But the story was,
I said chimichangas.
that Irsay came to McDaniel's house to fly him back to the press conference, and that he went to the restroom and was in there far too long for anybody to be comfortable, and that Josh McDaniel's wife said, "We don't want to work with this guy." And I feel like if that's true, I don't blame him. How long is too long for somebody to be in your house in the bathroom and say, "Yeah, I'm going to go work"?
30 minutes.
I think it's like 15.
Yeah. No, that's 30.
Yeah, because now people are on their
Sometimes
phones.
you got a
people
heavy
are on
dinner.
their phones.
Yeah, but
maybe
if
20.
You're on your phone in the bathroom,
Yeah.
you have to be thinking, okay, what are these people thinking about me out there? I got to get out there, and I'll use my phone out
Millionaires and billionaires, I don't think care about what the notion is about them, to be completely honest.
You know what? I said 50. I'm gonna take it back. I think it's like 5.
5? No.
You're in somebody's house. You're meeting for the first time. You're meeting somebody for the first time.
The best thing you can do is not even do it. Like
of course.
Yeah, that's a party foul.
But I'm saying 5 minutes. We're starting to think, what has happened?
Yeah. You know what? If you actually do that at somebody's house for the first time you just met, then maybe you don't want to be there working with that person. So I get you, Adam. Okay.
Yeah. And you have to think like, hey, this is gonna be my boss. Is he gonna visit me every day and start ruining? I don't know.
Would he be in the bathroom on company time? You know, we're supposed to be doing the game plan for the week.
I mean, I have so many questions that I would love to get answered at some point. It's tough to ask them. But yeah, I feel like if that really happened, I'm cool with just saying, you know what, this probably isn't going to work.
Just to bring it back a little bit, Adam, and speaking of, upset Raider fans, the whole mess with Kliff, do you think that maybe they got it right with going with Luke Getsy? And do you think the whole criticism of Kliff with the Cardinals was warranted, or maybe the Commanders messed up with getting Kliff? I just want to get your point from going from Kliff to Luke in 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it was me, I probably would have taken a little bit more time just to say, okay, let's think about this. But it's pretty clear, like, Luke Getsy was their second choice. They hired Kingsbury, it didn't work out, so let's just move on. Let's not overthink it, I guess, was their rationale. I think Kingsbury is a pretty good offensive coordinator. I think Getsy has the potential to potentially be as well. Like, who do you blame for what happened in Chicago? Do you blame Getsy? Do you blame potentially Justin Fields, other guys that were struggling a little bit on that offense? Whose fault is it? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. If there's some struggles again offensively, then it's probably something to say about Luke Getsy. But Luke Getsy's fate is not going to be determined necessarily by Luke Getsy. It's going to be determined by who's playing quarterback, and that is going to be a big factor here. And not just quarterback will be the main story, but how does the offensive line play? Do they still have Davante Adams? Do they still have Josh Jacobs? How do some of those other players perform? Because in the end, you can design the best offense ever. And if you don't have the players to do it, they're not going to do it. And you can design the worst offense ever. I'll tell you right now, if I'm the offensive coordinator for Patrick Mahomes, I probably look pretty good. Just go out there and play. What's the play? I don't know. Go throw it to somebody. Like, I would probably look pretty good as a coordinator. But that's because of the players. And the players do determine a lot more than we'd like to think when we talk about coaches.
Well, there's your question right there. Josh Jacobs, is he back? And Davante Adams, is he back?
You know what? I would have said at the end of the year, there's probably close to zero chance Josh Jacobs is back. But I do think that there's something to the feeling in the locker room of everybody kind of being excited. Everybody that was there last year loved the vibe so much that, would he potentially take less? Maybe. And I also, like, I've talked about it a lot of times. Like, I think running backs need to be paid more and better and have the structure different so that they can get compensated earlier in their careers. Because basically how it is now is after 4 years of just beating you up and running into the ground, we're not going to pay you. So like, how fair is that? If you have under team control for 4 years, now we're not going to pay you. Now, I also feel like teams shouldn't pay running backs. Like, I'm on both sides, but I feel like it should be changed. But I do feel like Josh Jacobs thinks there's bigger money out there than there probably actually is. So when he tests the market and finds out it's a little bit less than he thinks, he might say, well, all things being equal, no state taxes in Nevada, and I really like the locker room, I might come back.
It's kind of like last year with Tony Pollard and Saquon and all these guys, and even Austin Eckler, who they possibly thought they could get about 12 to 13, and then all reality is like you got franchise tagged, and it's only a 1-year deal.
Yeah, so there's a chance that he, sees that the grass isn't always greener on the other side and decides to come back. I think that's possible, much more possible now. I still wouldn't put it at 50%, but I think it's more possible now than it was at the end of the season.
And Davante?
Man, I think it's a big question. He did a podcast recently, and I'll say that Davante Adams doesn't say things on accident. That's something I've learned about him from being around him a little bit. And he definitely didn't shut down the possibility that he could get traded. Where do the Raiders think they are? Do they think that they actually have a chance to compete for a division title, make a deep run in the playoffs this year? I mean, on paper right now, I don't think they do. But if they believe they do, then you have to keep Davante Adams around. And if you believe that you don't have that chance, then you've got to try to trade him and see what you can get for him. I think that there's real benefit, especially if you have a young quarterback, to having an elite receiver to say, hey, is the quarterback good? And if he doesn't have a weapon, then you might say, well, we don't know if he's good. He doesn't have anybody to throw to. If you have Davante Adams, you can say, all right, can you get the ball to him? Maybe we've got something here. And so there is something to gauge a young quarterback on if you have an elite receiver like that. But I do think that there's probably a possibility that they're open to at least hearing off.